Now that we have a better understanding of events, let's talk more about functions. So far we have used a few functions. For example, the print string. This is a function. We have called a reference to our floor, and here we write, for example, set actor location, and this one is a function too. So functions are the ones that are connected to events, and these functions are the ones that do some sort of a behavior inside of your game. So for example, you are printing a string to the screen, or you are changing the location of the floor that you have. So you can see that these are functions by the f up here. It says f, this is a function. And these functions can be found if you right click, and you can see here all of these drop downs. You can drop one of them down and see that there are a lot of functions in here. Okay, so you can see some of the functions are blue and some of the functions are green. So there's a slight difference between these functions. Okay, so for example, let's take our classic one, the set actor location. So we can actually get a green one of it, and I will show you what that is. So if I write location and I scroll down, you can see that I can actually choose this get actor location, this is green, or I can choose set actor location, which is blue. And the green ones are the ones that get information, the blue ones are the ones that set information. So what that means is if you click on the green one, this is actually getting the location of the floor. So right now I am getting the location of the floor where it is currently in the world. While as the blue ones are the ones that set the location. So if we want to change the location of the floor, I'm going to use the blue one. We want to set the location to a new location. But if I simply want the location of the floor in the world, I will choose this green one, get actor location. So the green functions are the ones that get information, and the blue ones are the ones that set information. Functions also have inputs and return values. So these are the inputs and these are the return values. So for example, for this input, you can see we have this location, and we can always make a vector variable, and we can drag it out and connect it to this input. So now this new location that the floor will get is this variable that we set over here. So these are inputs, and this is what functions have. They can also have return values. So for example, here I get the floor location, and when I get the location, so now this is the floor location. Now I can do stuff with it. So this is the return value. It's returning the value of the floor where it currently is, where the location currently is. And for example, this can also be done with the rotation. So we can get the actor rotation, and now I can do something with this current rotation of the floor. Okay, the last thing I want to show you for functions is that you can actually make your own functions. So let's go back over here, and let's say we want to make our own function here. So what you can do is actually you can mark all of the all of the nodes you want to include in the function, and you can right click and click on collapse to function. So now you have made your own function, and you can call it or give it a name, give it something logical that you will remember 10 days later. So for example, set floor location. This is what it's doing. So now we have a new function, and this is called set floor location, and it's the one we made. So now if you double click it, you enter the function and you can see what it's actually doing. So now it collapsed our code into a new function. And this is a very great way to clean the code. So remember, when you're creating a game, your code can be super long, and you don't really want it to be this long. Remember to collapse things to functions. This is how you clean code. So for example, this one, if you want to change the location of something and the code is very long, you can just collapse it to a function and call it set floor location, for example. Now you can access these functions that you made yourself to the left over here. Inside of the functions tab, you can see the set floor location, and you can double click it to access it, as well as double clicking it here in the event graph. Now to use these functions multiple times, you can just And let me just delete this one and show you. You can just drag it out and place it, and you can connect it. So now you can use this function. And this is pretty cool because you can use it in multiple events. So let's say I created another event and I call it floor location. Floor location. This is actually something I already called the variable over here. So let me call it locations just for now. And let me compile and save. And let's say we want to use this again. So I can actually drag this function out and connect it down here. So this is easy accessible. This is pretty cool. Instead of just going and copy pasting this code multiple times, I can just make a function and I can use it multiple times. Now I will show you later on how we can use this in a more practical way, like if we're making a game and how it's going to be used. But before we end this video, I want to talk about these inputs and also when we have return nodes. So for example, this function over here, you can see it has a lot of inputs and it has a couple of return nodes that we can use. And this is something we can add to our function if you want to. So now we have this node, this starter node, and we can also make an end node, and this is called a return node. Now, if I make a return node just like this is actually the same as if there is nothing. So sometimes, or most of the times, I actually do this because it just looks cleaner to have a return node. It doesn't really mean anything to have it without anything, but it just cleans up the code. But if you want any outputs like return values and inputs, you can do this by clicking on the return node or the starting node, and you can add variables over here. So what you can do here is, if you click on the plus, it will add a variable, just like if you added variables over here. You can add variables to functions. So now I add a variable, and let's say I want to return this floor location value over here. So I create a new variable. I call it floor location, for example. Just something that makes sense. And I can choose the variable type. And in this case, this is a vector. So I'm going to choose vector, which it is already there. So I'm going to connect my floor location to the return node. And now if I compile and save and go back to my event graph, you can see here now we have a return node. Now we can use this floor location out here and do stuff with it. Okay, so this is pretty cool. This is how you add variables to functions and make return nodes. And the same thing, if you want an input, you can add inputs over here, variables too. And let's say, for example, the input should be some sort of a text, and the text should be called message. Just something random. I just want to show you. And you can see here now we actually have an input message, and we can say, yay, you changed the location. And this doesn't really make sense for now. I just want to show you how to make inputs and return nodes. So this is how you do it. You can add variables to functions. And don't worry if it's too complicated right now. You don't really have to remember this for now. In the later lessons, we will go more in depth about this. I just want to show you how you can make, or how you can add variables to functions. Okay, I think it's a good place to stop the video before it gets too complicated. So in the next lesson, let's talk more about macros, and very, very soon, let's do a practical example where we actually do something inside of this level and we put together all of the things we have learned. So let's go over and learn more about macros.